So I faced a lot of rejections in my life. For example, I was rejected from Oxford University. Wait, I'm not sure whether I even told you guys that, if I'm honest with you. No, I haven't told you that. I would do a whole story time on it, but there's honestly nothing I can really say. It was honestly, I just applied to Oxford and they said no. Computer says no, you know what I'm saying? Computer says no. I even received a rejection last week. I approached a certain YouTuber and asked them if they wanted to collab on a video and they said no. Computer says no. So rejections are something that, you know, not only in the legal sphere, but you know, you're going to come across quite often. And it always happens actually whenever you try to put yourself out there for something. So I tried to put myself out there and applied to Oxford, got rejected. I reached out for a collab with a YouTuber, tried to put myself out there, got rejected. The first tip that I'd like to say in terms of rejections and dealing with rejections and how I've dealt with them is try not to let that fear of rejection put you off doing something that could potentially really work out for you. It's no secret that this process for getting a training contract is riddled with rejections, and nearly any trainee or any future trainee or any associate or any partner has probably received at least one rejection during the process. And it honestly, it sucks. It's so crap. When I was in the training contract process, I think I had around 30 to 50 rejections overall from all the cycles that I did. Someone might look at me and say, well, Sim, how are you making YouTube videos about this kind of stuff now with all these rejections? And it's like, well, it was actually what I learned from the rejections and how I tried to improve myself, how I reacted to these rejections that allowed me to really hone in on where I needed to improve and allowed me to achieve what I've achieved, but also build my character along the way. So to sum up, what I'm going to be talking about in this video is how I deal with rejections, how I rationalize it in this small brain of mine, and how I'm able to bounce back and keep fighting for another day. So let's start off with the first thing that really helped me when it came to rejections, and that was faith. Now you can take faith in two different ways. For me, I took it in a more kind of religious manner. I'm a practicing Sikh individual. That means as part of my religion, whenever bad things or good things come our way, we always accept that as God's way. And I think that's something that has really helped me in terms of really trying to actually take a sit back and being like, you know what is meant for me will come for me. And if it isn't meant for me, it's fine. That's just God's way. And that's one thing by what I mean by faith. But of course, not everyone watching here is going to be religious. I don't want to turn this into some kind of preaching. But what I also mean by faith is believing in that bigger picture. And understanding, I really don't want to sound cliche here, but understanding that of course, if something doesn't work out for you now, do try and think about that bigger picture. In a month's time, in 2 months' time, in a year's time, you could look back at your position and be absolutely laughing like, wow, how was I even upset about that? Or, you know, things worked out so well after that. So that's really how I kind of went about it as well. I acknowledged that things can literally switch for me at any moment. And that is exactly what happened at this time. I think 2 years ago when I was in the training contract process and I was applying for vacation schemes and training contracts, at this moment, I didn't have any vacation schemes set. And then a couple of weeks later, I hear back from the firm that I'm training at now that I got through to the assessment center, and then the ball started rolling, and lo and behold, I managed to get a vacation scheme that summer. And that was literally in the space of 2-3 months. But 2-3 months before my vacation scheme, I was feeling absolutely helpless, thinking, you know what? Nah, I'm not gonna get a TC. I'm not gonna do this, because I was just getting rejections after rejections. So do try and believe that things can change for you. But I do this with a big but. Big but? I caveat that by saying that you can't just now sit back and be like, okay, you know what, things are gonna come for me anyway. I'm just going to you know, do the same things that I'm doing. I'm just gonna still write my applications the same way. I'm still, you know, I believe I do well in online tests. I don't care what the firm says. That's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, is to actually ensure that that bigger picture, or believing in that bigger picture, actually happens. Some form of self-improvement is also required along the way, and really acknowledging that this is a process where you are in control of the outcome, not the firm, not anyone else, you. And I genuinely do believe that if you start identifying the areas where you are going wrong, or start identifying the areas which are just not working for you, and really start engaging with a kind of personal development journey, that is personally what really helped me. Rather than just saying, you know what will be, if I get a TC, I'll get it, if I don't, I don't. I'm not gonna like obviously sugarcoat things for you. Hard work is definitely involved as well. Let me give you an example of this. So when I was rejected from PwC, so that was a vacation scheme that I had secured straight away after I graduated university. So I was feeling pretty on top of the world, right? But also that was my downfall, because that made me very complacent. And unsurprisingly, I was rejected after that vacation scheme. Now the feelings after that was back at square one, and the day that I was rejected, I think I only had 2-3 days until that July 21st deadline for training contracts. So there I was again, scrambling with last minute applications. So obviously wasn't the best time in my life, if I'm honest with you. And that rejection hit me hard. I would say I was bitter about it for about 6 months. Petty Sim, like I was really bitter about it, to the point where like if someone even mentioned PwC to me, I'd be like, you know, like that Arthur meme where his fist is like that in the sleeve, that was me. Anytime anyone mentioned PwC, I'd just be like, not today. Now at that point in my life when I was rejected, I was so immature. Like you guys might be sitting here thinking, oh, you know what, Sim's bare clever and she's so like, oh, you know, amazing. That's so cocky. I'm still a waste man, don't ever forget that. But what journey I'd went through after that rejection was so required. The life lessons I'd learned, the resilience I'd built, I would have never got that if it wasn't for that rejection. And if anything, I think it's prepared me to be a better trainee now than I was back then. So I hate, you know, no one likes rejections. I'm not going to tell you, oh, you know, you should start loving the rejection process. When you see an email rejection, you should be like, yes, rejected. Like, I'm not saying that at all, but I think it's about kind of accepting that maybe something is acting as an obstacle for you in your past, but with hard work, perseverance, patience, you will get there, and you are on this journey for a reason. I'm trying not to get all spiritual here, but I really do think for me personally, in terms of dealing with my rejections, there was that spiritual element to it. And I do think key life skills like resilience, they're not something that you're taught at school, right? You can't just read a textbook and be like, resilience means blah 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 blah. Okay, I know what resilience is now. It's not about that. I feel like you genuinely develop resilience when you are faced with obstacles, and usually rejections are those obstacles when things aren't going your way, essentially. So yeah, I am just genuinely, I'm not saying love getting rejections, but I think this leads on to my next point actually, but it's try to appreciate the process more rather than the outcome. That was another way in which I tried to deal with rejections. So the training contract process can be seen as very outcome driven. You are working so hard day in, day out, doing applications, online tests, interviews, assessment centers. At the end, all you need is one thing, that training contract offer, and it can be so outcome driven. But what I started to do was start focusing less on the outcome and more on the process. So I started focusing on the skills that I was actually developing in the process that not only would be helpful for me in a training contract, but just generally in life is something that involved me improving in some way. Let me give you some examples. Writing applications teaches us to write concisely. It teaches us to not go off on a tangent. It teaches us to actually write in a persuasive manner, not sell ourselves short. It also really builds your attention to detail skills, because you don't want to get things like name of the firms wrong, or spelling, or punctuation. Doing the online tests teach us about critical thinking. Now come on, which one of us is going to be sat here doing critical thinking tests in our spare time, right? Like, we're actually using our brains, and I've got a small one, yeah, but you know, it feels nice to use it sometimes, and that's sometimes what critical tests are doing. I wouldn't be doing this in my free time, so why not do it now? And then doing interviews and assessment centers, those are people skills in my opinion. You again are being persuasive. You are selling yourself to an individual. Why should they go to you? Why should they hire you? And it's also teaching you like basic communication skills and acting in a professional manner. So these are all really great things that just generally, not only do you need in the training contract process, but you're honing in on general life skills as well. So when I started focusing on that aspect rather than the outcome of I need a TC, I need a TC, I need a TC, I actually started to appreciate the process a lot more, but also I wouldn't say I completely desensitized myself from the rejections, like getting rejection emails, because I still, you know, I to this day, I still feel like that little heart sinking feeling when I get a rejection. But I think the main way in which this has helped me is dealing with that rejection after. And that leads on to my next tip. My next tip is it's not the rejection that's important. It's how you react to it after. That's what counts. Now, I'm not saying wipe your tears instantly, Shah Rukh Khan style, and instantly start doing your application straight away because you want to react to it straight away. It's not like that. Allow yourself that time to feel disappointment, to feel sad, to be upset about it, to be bitter about it. I gave myself 6 months to be bitter about my PwC rejection because honestly, it did affect me so much. However, everyone in the process receives a rejection at some point, but what really sets people apart is how they react to it. Let me give you an insight into what I used to do when, as soon as that rejection email came in from a law firm. So I would read the email, I'll acknowledge it, I'd probably read it like 2 or 3 times maybe just to make sure there wasn't a mistake, but usually sometimes you do get an idea when the first line is unfortunately blah blah blah. You just know from there, you know it's not gonna work out. So I read it, I acknowledge it, and then I put my phone aside, actually. I deliberately decide for that day, I'm just not going to go on social media because I honestly feel like crap. And I think we all know how detrimental social media, I think we can all accept how detrimental social media can be when you're already feeling like crap. And I deliberately, you know, avoided Instagram and LinkedIn specifically. I would then try and keep my mind occupied with other things to just try and keep me busy. I'd talk to my friends, I'd talk to my family, I'd watch Netflix, I would go and exercise. Exercise was the main thing for me, if I'm honest with you. It really kept me grounded. Exercising, sports, or engaging in whatever hobby that genuinely drives your interest or motivation will really help you overcome and deal with the rejection sooner, faster, better. Sometimes my mind would wander to that rejection. I still get my mind wandering to the rejection I received last week, but when that happens, I just let it sit there. I don't try and push the thought away because I do feel like the more you try and push a thought away, the more it just persists there. Like if I told you guys right now, think of a cow, and then you try to like stop thinking about a cow, you can't, can you? Because it's literally just right here in the front of your mind. Like I can't stop thinking about a cow now. I bet you guys can't either. And then whenever I felt ready, I would go back to the firm that I was rejected from and I would look at my application that I'd sent to them again. And sometimes what I would do is if I had access to a printer, I would actually print off the application. I would annotate it over in pencil or red pen about the points where I think I went wrong. And I talk a little bit about self-reviewing your applications in other videos. I'll tag one in the video above, and I'm not going to go obviously too much in detail here because I've already discussed that, so definitely do check out the video above if you are interested in that element. But that's essentially the main crux of how I dealt with my applications. I reread my applications over again and I really tried to understand where I was going wrong. And the same thing with my assessment centers, my interviews. At those stages you do get feedback, and when I got feedback at those stages, I used to compile it all together into a little kind of folder, Microsoft Word document, and then I'd kind of group it up. So where was it where I went wrong this time? Was it my confidence? It was actually, a lot of the time when I was rejected, it was my confidence that was the issue, because at that moment in time, I didn't really believe in myself. And also attention to detail was another thing that really kept springing up for me in my feedback. So I really kind of honed in on those when I was in the process and really tried to Google search, YouTube search, TCLA search, how I could improve those elements. And then I went back to my action plan. So what firms did I have left? What did I want to apply to next? What was the plan? You know, am I going to do an application this week, next week? What's the sitch? So once I'd had that all written down, I'm someone who likes to stay organized. So I had a whole checklist ready. I had calendars with deadlines written on them for different firms. And that really helped me just clear my mind and just think, you know what, right, I'm gonna keep going now. The rejection is not behind me, it's still in my mind, but we move. We honestly, this is the summary of this video is we move. We literally move. And now when I still get a rejection, whether it be in life, you know, just generally in life, you still feel that disappointment. It's a natural feeling. But I think one thing I just really want to leave you guys with, just a thought, is imagine a life where you weren't rejected from things, where everything just went your way. For example, say if your parents never said no to you, you'd pretty much turn out to be like a spoiled brat. I was pretty blunt there. For example, in school, if your teachers never said no to you, you'd probably just flunk out of school. Like if your teachers didn't tell you off for missing school, then you just be like, oh, I'm just gonna miss it every day then, right? And that's obviously not good for your educational development either. Imagine a life where laws didn't prevent you from doing something, or the laws didn't reject you from doing something. They said, no, you can't do that. Like the world would literally be the purge 24/7. Don't you see how rejections are somewhat necessary for growth? Not saying that it's a nice thing and you should enjoy it, or you should, you know, revel or look forward to rejections. That's not the case at all. But for me personally, I've always felt like whenever I've been rejected from anything, it's been a point of growth for me. It's been a changing tactic. It's something I just need to improve on. Hopefully this video has been helpful in some way. Rejection is such a difficult part of the process, especially in this legal process, and I really hope this video has helped you guys out. Thank you so much for watching. See you all in the next video.